4 p.m. on a Friday. You guys know what time it is. It's Money Myth Busters. MMB, welcome. Happy Friday. Today, different guests, different voice. We got Raymond, another co-founder of ours at Compass, soon to be DiversiFi. Raymond, how are you doing?
Doing good. It's Friday. Looking forward to my birthday weekend.
Oh, happy early birthday, man. I know it's on Wednesday next week. It's going to be fun. Uh, Hopefully
Happy to
get
be
to
on go ahead.
happy you get to celebrate virtually, right? We're going to celebrate virtually with you, with the team. So good to have that.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. So what are we going to be talking about today? Myth on episode 6, going to be tailored towards our small business owners, those that are self-employed, those that are thinking about doing some contracting, those that are always saying, I need some extra help on my taxes, right? What do I do? All right. This one's for you guys. Okay. So the myth that we have today is around self-employed individuals, right? They always come to us and be like, hey, you know what? Like, how do I lower my taxes? I should just spend money through my business, right? Because that's going to help lower my taxes, right? Raymond, give us your thoughts on that, right? Does spending money, right, on your taxes or on your business give you or end up giving you more of a benefit than you're actually spending?
So just a flat out answer that will be a no. But we'll go through this whole session today to explain why that is. Now, it makes sense in certain aspects, right? When we are spending expenses because we need to, but we shouldn't necessarily go out to spend expenses just to take that deduction, right? So just to start off on a higher level, what exactly is business deductions, right? So they're also known as expenses. So if you were an owner of a company and you're starting it, you're creating it, it's basically all the revenue that you receive minus any deductions or expenses that you're utilizing to help run your company, right? So it can be things like ordinary type of expenses that are common within your same industry as your business, or even necessary expenses that help to run the business itself. So some examples of expenses that you can hear of is around advertising or marketing expenses, interest paid on certain loans, office expenses like supplies, like paper, or any other supplies that you have for your business, maintenance and repair costs. So there's definitely a long list of different types of expenses.
Mm-hmm.
You can also do your own office lease, utility expenses. Pretty sure a big favorite one is also gifts and meals and entertainment, just because you can share yourself in that as well. But some personal expenses that come up a lot is, if you had a car, right? Some of it's going to be used for personal expenses, some is going to be used for the business, right? So for that business use, you're able to deduct a portion of that, right? So similar to if you're self-employed and you're working from home, the portion of your home that you actually work in that you consider an office is actually deductible as well, right? So a lot of different deductions that you can take as a business owner. Now, that's probably the reason why people ask, should I just try to do more and more to get more deductions, right? So yeah, go ahead.
And I pause you because you're talking about, right, like taking deductions, right, from a tax perspective. And I totally forgot to tell people, right, if we're talking about taxes, which we are today, right, this is from an education and strategy perspective, right? It's talking about what is possible, right? And Raymond's actually being very clear here about what is ordinary and necessary as a business expense. But of course, the myth is about, like, should I be spending more money? Like, does it make sense to spend more money from a tax perspective, which Raymond will get into? I just wanted to remind everybody that, right, like what you're putting on your taxes, right, is definitely something that you need to talk to a tax preparer about, right? It's something that we want to make sure that you're hearing from us today is more from an education and learning perspective and not treated as tax advice or your tax professionals. Okay. So just wanted to outline that.
Cool. Thank you for that. I'm actually guilty of forcing Nathan and Alfred to read this book.
Yes, you are. I'm surprised you didn't tell me to go at that right at the beginning. You're on here for the first time and you missed the disclaimer.
My very first one, so getting used to the whole process of it. But yes, I appreciate that putting in there. So, but jumping back into with understanding what those deductions are, let's use numbers for example. So let's say that for revenue, you're pulling in about $100,000 per year. Okay, now $20,000 of that is actually expenses that you had to use to pay off, any software that you're using, any supplies that you have. So that basically decreases your taxable income to $80,000, right? So with that $20,000, a portion of that is actually taxed, right? So with that deduction, let's say that the total between IRS and state and Social Security, for example, equals to 30%. So 30% of that $20,000, which equals to $6,000, is actually being saved. So out of that 20,000 expenses, you're getting $6,000 back. Okay. So it's very important to remember that you're only saving a portion of that $20,000. But net, you're still spending $14,000 that's not coming back to you, right? So it goes back to the point that, when you have expenses that are necessary and that are ordinary, those are things that are used to run your business, right? Not necessarily things that you have to spend or go out to spend more of just because of those deductions.
Right.
So I wanted to clarify that there.
Yeah, that's really helpful, right? Because the idea is that you hear all the time, well, if you have a business, you could just write it off. I hear that all the time, right? And I think if you're going into being your own business owner or doing some consulting on the side and you want to start your own sole proprietorship, yeah, that gives you the ability to have business deductions, right? Things that, again, are ordinary and necessary for your business. But it doesn't mean, right? It doesn't mean go out and spend $1,000 on an iPad because I'm going to get it all back, right? To what Raymond is saying is you don't get it all back. You have to think of it like, because I'm adding it as a business deduction, depending on what your tax rates could look like, in our example, 30%, you get that iPad at $700 because that 30% is what you save from having it as a business deduction. But you have to ask yourself, is $700 still a worthy investment to make or a worthy need that you have? And again, you may need it, but don't use that as a justification to go out and buy a new iPad, which is, I think, what we get a sense of all the time is like, hey, because it's a business deduction, right? You're better off buying it than not buying it, right? And that's not the case. You don't get a dollar for dollar savings by doing that. So we just wanted to be very clear, right? And I think it's I think all of us have stories, right? Like, because we, as our own small business owners, right, have people telling us, just write that off as an expense, right? You have to share the story, though. You have to share a story about what your dad said to you. That's too good not to share.
Yeah, so I think this is actually a prime example and why I wanted to do the Money Mythbusters today. But, my story is when I needed a ride to the airport. My dad is a taxi driver, and he was actually going to work already, which is the worst part. But as I got into the car, he actually turned on his meter as we were leaving the house. And I didn't really think much of it, besides maybe he just wanted to have that extra cash as on there. But basically, as we go onto the ride to the airport, I'm unloading my luggage. He tells me to go ahead and put in my business credit card to pay for it. Now, from where I am, it was about a $60 taxi charge from the house to the airport. And he was like, just write it off as a deduction. And being as part of one of the owners of Compass Capital or DiversiFi, we're still spending that $60 and only be able to deduct a portion of it, right? But that net amount, whether it's $40, $50, didn't really need to be spent. But I had no problem giving it to my dad because he did give me a ride there. But it was just a good story to provide of how his thinking of it was, that maybe he thought of it was as a dollar from dollar deduction, which isn't the case.
Yeah. It's just funny to find out your dad charged you for your own taxi ride. Now, even
he charged us.
It's true. Not knowing whether or not that taxi ride to the airport was for business expenses or not. It like what, right? I mean, that's something that's going to play a part when you think about being a self-employed owner as well. Is like, if I make that taxi ride, did I do it because I'm going on a business trip, or am I doing it for personal reasons? If you're doing it for personal reasons, it's not something you can write off. If you're doing it for a business trip, different story, right? So again, there are some nuances there, but I tell a lot of clients, right? Like, use common sense, right? Use common sense of understanding what is a business deduction or not, to say, do I need this for my business? Do I need this for my business to write it off, right? And if you do, then it's a good qualified business expense, but know that that expense isn't going to give you 100% of what you spent back. So be smart about what you're spending as well. All right. So I think that's a pretty good coverage there on that myth itself. You know, for us, there's another part that I wanted to jump in and cover because I think it's relevant to a lot of people right now working from home in industries. Maybe they're thinking to themselves, maybe I want to start my own thing. Maybe I want to start my own business. Maybe I want to do some consulting, right? And so the first thing that I hear from clients when they say, I want to start a business, is to say, Alfred, don't I need to go create an LLC, some business entity to become, right, an actual formed business? And the answer to that is not quite. You don't have to do that, right? And so if you're even just wanting to dabble into doing some consulting and you want to bill someone, right, for your services, right, or you're into photography and you want to see if you can sell your prints. Well, if you do sell your prints, right, it's quite possible you have to be paying income or paying tax on the income that you're earning on it. Even right there, you could say that you've started a side business, right? And starting a side business, or what we call a sole proprietorship, is one of the easiest things to form, right? And it's really up to you, right, to keep track of all your expenses and income to report on your taxes at the end of the year. And this is on your own personal tax return, just under a different form, right? And I wanted to bring that up, not because I want to get too much into the details of how to do that, but I just wanted to explain to people that starting a business isn't always just about creating an LLC, right? Starting a business is about actually having the business idea, right? Being able to generate the income. And there could be actually some very simple ways to get a business started, right? And so just wanted to bring that up since we were talking about business expenses and being self-employed. All right. So I think that covers our myth today. I wanted to close out by saying, again, anything that we've talked about today isn't, of course, meant to be personal financial advice. It's supposed to be a general topic, some general education to just get you guys thinking about some of these things that we're talking about. If you're looking for the actual personalized advice portion of it, feel free to reach us through our website, compasscmg.com. Be happy to go over the different things that we can provide in terms of an advice-based type service, right? You can also look through our website and see our fee structure. So run through that and be happy to give you guys a free consultation on that. For next week, episode 7, we're going to go into a little bit of budget and savings type category, right? And so the myth there is a couple, but one is, as long as I don't spend more than I make, I am good to go, right? Or the other one is, hey, Alfred, I'm maxing out my 401k, right? I'm doing as much as I can for my retirement, so I must be good there, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about those two things, how to think about savings, how to think about quote unquote retirement savings itself, right? And hopefully get you guys a little bit more insight to how you guys are spending and how to make better use of your funds. Raymond, thanks for joining us for your first Money Mythbusters. How was it?
Thanks for having me. It was fun. Definitely. For our next topic, I feel like it's going to be a love it or hate it. At least we see from certain clients who love budgeting or some that really hate it. So I think that'll be a very interesting one to share with everybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I look forward to having you guys next week. I hope everyone has a great Friday.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.